What's for lunch? Well, I've come here to an inner city supermarket and I've prepared a shopping list. But this is not a shopping list of the kind that you would normally have. There's nothing here about fruit or vegetables or meat or tin food or processed food. It's a list of 5 questions. 5 questions I think it probably makes sense to ask before you even take anything off the shelf. Let's go inside. Bottled water travels around the world in vast quantities and people very often like to know where it comes from. San Pellegrino, that obviously comes from Italy. Highland Spring comes from the Highlands of Scotland. People like to know because very often they like to buy locally. They don't necessarily want to buy something that's come from a long way away. Take this bottle that I spotted just now. There's really no sign of where this came from at all, so you'd be simply guessing. Well, I'm now in the dairy section, in fact standing in front of the milk here. And that raises the second question I've got on my list. Is this food safe and how can I be sure? Well, I suppose with milk we tend to assume, of course, milk is very safe. Generally it's fairly locally produced, hasn't travelled very far. But even milk, there is a small food chain involved. I'll go across to the cheese section over here. At the cheese counter now, and Camembert, everybody's favourite. Obviously travelled a little further than the milk that I was looking at just now, and of course in the very nature of cheese making undergone more processing, more steps if you like in the food chain, which just raises the possibility that there is the extra chance that something can go wrong. You might think tinned tomatoes are tinned tomatoes, it's really all of a piece. What I was looking at there were actually described as organic plum peeled tomatoes. These are described just as plum tomatoes but premium peeled, so they're not organic but it's a different categorization. And then lower down here we've got something which is really much more generic, it just says peeled tomatoes. So this is just 3 of a whole range of different tinned tomatoes that are available on the shelves here. Another issue of food quality and safety, and it's the 4th item on my shopping list, is genetic modification, GM foods. A lot of people are very upset at the idea of eating GM foods, so they should have the right to know whether they are or whether they're not. And that should be on the label. Well, I'm here in the tin corn section, lots of different tins of stuff here. I've been looking through several of them and none of them say anything about GM at all. They don't say they do contain it, they don't say they don't. So the assumption is that they don't contain it, but it is an assumption. I'm standing here in a supermarket with goodness knows how many thousands of ranges of food. Most of them are processed, of course, but there's also a lot of fresh food on sale here, like the fresh meat that I'm standing in front of here. And once again, people have at the back of their mind, can I have confidence that the food that I'm eating, the meat that has come from the farm and will go on to the fork, is actually going to be wholesome and pure? We consumers now demand a great variety in the food available to us, and we want it all the year round. But it does raise problems, the kind of questions that we've been talking about in the last few minutes. The origin of the food, the safety of the food, the quality of the food, the confidence that we can have in it, and the extent to which it's satisfactorily labelled to tell us where it came from and what's in it. We've come a long way, I think, in the past 10 years in tackling these kind of issues, but there are still plenty of questions to be asked, plenty of areas where we could do more.